Madam Mayor, we're live at 6:02 p.m.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this Tuesday, November 27th, City of Lake Worth work session to order and ask the clerk to call the roll, please.
Mayor Pam Triolo,
Here.
Vice Mayor Andy Amoroso,
Here.
Commissioner Scott Maxwell,
Here.
Commissioner Omari Hardy,
Here.
Commissioner Herman Robinson.
Here.
If everyone would please rise for the pledge, led by Commissioner Robinson.
I pledge allegiance to
Okay, I saw some people filling out some blue cards on my way in, so I will allow for public comment after each of the discussion items. We'll move on to those discussion items. Item 5A, City Attorney, would you read the ordinance, please?
In a workshop, we don't.
Oh, you don't have to read
Yeah.
the ordinance? Okay.
If you don't mind, Madam Mayor,
Yeah.
I'll go ahead and lead off. Mayor and Commissioners, based on the meetings where we last had conversations about ballot issues, we've put this workshop together to have a discussion about the 3 ballot questions that we were directed to formulate and bring together so that you can then instruct us which ones you want to move forward with. And time is of the essence in this case because we have a deadline of a drop dead date of setting the ballot December 13th, which is when we not only have to put who are the candidates are going to be on the ballot, but if you're going to put any ballot questions, and that would be the adoption of an ordinance. December 4th would be our planned first reading, and we would have advertising that week. So this meeting is really important to give staff direction which ones you really want to move forward on to put on those agendas. And to that end, we have 3 different ordinances which reflect ballot languages for 3 different issues. The 3 being adding beach to the name of the City of Lake Worth, so it becomes the City of Lake Worth Beach. Ballot language that allows for the sale of city-owned property in the downtown core per charter, which is at the address of 501 Lake Avenue, the old Chamber of Commerce building. And the third one is ballot language per charter provisions for a 12-acre parcel up in the northwest corner of the city, abutting I-95 and the C-51 canal behind Vernon Heights. As part of looking at whether or not you want to proceed with these, I contacted the consultant that we had used previously when the question of the neighborhood road program ballot language was being formulated to help y'all look at the different issues involved and whether you wanted to proceed. And Steve Vancor is here. Oh, there you are, you're hiding. With us tonight, and he has a really high-level presentation of some of the polling that he did and the results, which may help you formulate some discussion or how you want to proceed with these 3 items. So what I'd like to do, and we do have some printing. I know that some of the hard copies didn't make it up here, but he'll be putting some of the information up on the screen that you can look at until you get that in your hands. So Steve, if you don't mind coming forward, and Alfonso, if he'll be the trigger man over there on the power. Do you want to do it yourself? Sure. Look at that. He's ambidextrous. So if you'll walk them through the first several pages of your results.
Sure. Thank you. And thanks for having the humility and the wisdom to ask the voters what they think before you embark on that journey. We're a polling firm, and we, on the instruction of your city attorney and your manager, we polled registered voters in the district. We were able to contact about 200 of them, and we asked them a number of things. And I want to open it with the first thing we asked them was how do they feel, generally speaking, about the direction of the city? And this will tell you a lot about some of the other questions. And they're not the happiest people we've ever polled, but they're not upset with things either. About half of them say things are going in the right direction. About 30% think things are not going in the right direction. The rest are kind of menza, right? They're unsure. But in this environment, that's pretty good. We do a lot of city polls, and this is right in the middle of where people feel about their local communities. So then after that, We went into how do they feel about the commission. They feel good about you guys too. But then we went to the question of how do they feel about changing the name of the city. And what's important here, what's important in doing this, is we asked the ballot language exactly, working with your team, exactly as it would appear on the ballot. So we're measuring it as closely and as accurately, reliably as possible. So they reacted to that question. And the question was read as such: in order to distinguish itself from surrounding unincorporated areas, shall Article 1, Section 1 of the City of Lake Worth Charter, entitled City Created, be amended to change the name of the city from City of Lake Worth to City of Lake Worth Beach. And what we found, and it's important to understand on these types of ballot questions, we often say that the first day you launch it, the first day they hear it, is your high water mark. These things tend to go downward. Because generally the no's, for two reasons, especially in lower turnout municipal elections. A, when they hear information, they tend to hear and recall negative information. And B, in smaller turnout elections, who's more likely to show up? The people that are like, I don't want that to happen to me, so they come out and more likely to vote no. So in this kind of scenario, you see you're starting below 50% on the yes. And those who are most likely to vote no are your frequent voters and your older voters, because we cross-tabbed it across the different types of voters. Do you want me to go through all of them and then we can answer questions, or you want to have questions about this one in particular?
I think stay high level, if you don't mind.
Yeah, that's fine. I just have one question
Yes,
for
ma'am.
you, and does it oversee all these issues? The demographics,
Yes, ma'am.
so of that polling, because you're looking at 200 people of 38,000, 37,000
Yep.
people. So of those students, what are the age groups, if you
So
can share with the people at home?
that's a really good question. What we did is we balanced the poll
Okay.
as much as possible to look like the likely electorate. We balanced it by several variables. We balanced it by geography to make sure people were represented throughout the city. We balanced it by gender, so it's like 52% female. We balanced it by age, and we balanced it by party, and we balanced it by ethnicity. And where we didn't get it naturally, we told the computer to weight it so that this poll looks to the maximum extent practicable, because I can't know what turnout will look like. We just saw in the midterm election, independent voter turnout was a record. So was Democratic turnout. So was Republican turnout, right? So you can't really know what it's going to look out. But based on prior similar elections, this poll looks like your electorate.
Now, we have a high listing of NPA voters as opposed to the two primary parties. Does that play into this too?
Yes, ma'am. It looks just like it.
Okay.
Balanced just like it. And you can see on page 3, we developed a grid to show you what each of those targets was. So your other, actually, this only had 10%. So that was what the registered voter file was, very low in independent voters. I'll be happy to go back and double check that for
Okay.
you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
And also, when you pose it as city of, that's my other question, city of Lake Worth or city of Lake Worth Beach, why is, I know we're the city of Lake Worth, to differentiate between Lake Worth County or unincorporated Lake Worth, but using the word city of, does that matter? I mean, if it was city of Lake Worth or Lake Worth Beach, when you say city of, is that just formalizing it? I mean, is every city of?
Madam Mayor, right now in the charter, we are the city of Lake Worth. So if we were to amend the charter, I think it would be to keep it the same city, because of course your choices would be town, village, or something like that. So
There's always that precursor to it, that
To
is the
recognize
city
as
of-
a municipality.
So it's the city of Boynton Beach, the city of, when it
Correct.
refers to it. Okay, just,
Okay.
thanks.
Any other questions about this? So we then asked the question about the sale of downtown property to improve infrastructure and enhance redevelopment. In order to improve downtown infrastructure and enhance redevelopment, shall the city of Lake Worth be authorized to sell property at 501 Lake Avenue in downtown Lake Worth, with all proceeds used exclusively within downtown Lake Worth. You see, boom, the opposite. They like this a lot. Only 30%, 29% opposed it. Similar demographic differences where older voters and more frequent voters were slightly less positive, but on no group were you underwater. With every voting group, you were above water and above 50% almost across the board. And what I tend to learn that they like about these kind of things is that the money that comes into you isn't left willy-nilly. It is specifically earmarked and targeted for something, an in-kind kind of transfer. And they like that a lot. And you see that, I'll move on to the next one if you have no questions, because they travel very similarly. Similarly, sale of vacant unused property to improve local parks and recreation. Because one of the things we did here too, we also tested different messages, which were the most powerful. The two most powerful, you see it right here, was enhancing parks, enhancing recreation. They love that idea. They also love the idea of independent review to make sure the money goes where it goes. So this question was a little different. In order to improve local parks and recreation, shall the city of Lake Worth be authorized to sell the currently vacant and unused city property at address if the sale is contractually restricted to a development of no more than 24 single-family homes, with all proceeds used exclusively for parks and recreation within the city, and the expenditure of the proceeds subject to independent review by a Citizens Advisory Committee. Again, very popular. You picked up an extra net 5 points by adding those two variables, the Parks and Rec. Although the downtown redevelopment was also popular, and you lost that 30% drop down to 27%. So very popular question. Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Robinson?
Just, if we decide to put it for sale, when could we talk about the contractual sale itself, price?
Well, that would be above my pay grade, sir. Yeah.
After, I mean, okay,
Yes, sir.
You mean after it passes, yeah.
yes.
Would you like to continue? Did you have a question? I'm
Yes, I
sorry.
did.
You said
I
yes.
can't see.
Sorry. Oh, the tissue. Oh, the tissue.
Give me
Okay.
some.
It's not that sad.
Where did the number 24 single-family homes come from?
The number of units at the meeting where the decision was made to put this forward as one of the items, I had a split vote among the commission, honestly. And I believe Herman Robinson at the time, Commissioner Robinson, said that he would support this if there was a limit on it. So,
I'm not asking about where did the idea of a limit come from. I'm asking where did the
and then I
specific
asked,
limit
and I
come from?
asked William Waters and staff, to his best capability, how could he come up with a number of units there that would assure a development pattern that was not as tightly packed as the Lake Cove properties, but was closer towards units that would look more like the surrounding Vernon Heights model. Not necessarily the huge rights-of-ways and things, but the number of units. And it was the most, given the fact you only have, 75 words you have to work with,
Sure.
that seemed to be a number that worked to fulfill that as a maximum.
Okay.
Now, understanding that there would be
Yeah.
drainage and all kinds of
I'm
other
asking
things.
because
Maybe
we discussed lots of things. We didn't discuss an actual number.
correct.
And so it would have been interesting to have a range of stuff for the sake of polling. I mean, you know my position on this, but, so yeah, sorry, my light's already off.
We did our best calculation as possible, so this would be a maximum number.
Okay.
And again, as to the point, it would be under the contractual side.
Commissioner Robinson?
And I started at 5 homes, so we have to make it, if we decide to sell it, we do have to make it marketable. But I want it to certainly not, I want it to look very similar to its neighboring Vernon Heights neighborhood.
All right, cool.
Okay, would you like to continue?
You have any other questions? And you have in the report guidance on when you do this. The elevators and anchors gives you good guidance on what kind of messages to use. That I think the public really supports the idea that the money stays right here in the community. The fact that it's earmarked to do specific things. The fact that they like downtown redevelopment. They love the idea of you improving your local.
We
City
added
Manager?
some of the questions, thank you, Madam Mayor, after this, the individual questions. I didn't know if there was any value to run through those or
Okay.
not. That maybe give them a little better context.
Yeah, this is the right track, wrong track, where you see almost half feel things are going in the right direction. Only about 29%, which is, by the way, no coincidence. You notice the red wrong track is 29%. Those voting no generally travel together on all those. They think things are going in the wrong direction. They tend to vote no on things. There's a city commission, 53% favorable, 28% unfavorable. Again, you see that coincidence, which is about a 2-to-1 favorability, which is very good for a sitting commission. Okay, but no big problems going on. We had the this is the ballot question. Okay, it's just rotating around, so same things. Let me read to you which because this can get confusing if we go through all of the different areas. I'll tell you what are the most popular issues. We asked them about, tell me, selling this property, what would be a good use of the property? Number one issue, would you be more or less likely to vote for this, or vote for it or against it? You're more likely to vote against money being used for parks. 82% agreed. We call that an elevator. It pulls the issue up. So we're talking about, hey, look, this money is going to be used for parks. They love that. Outdoor recreation, 75% more likely. On the other ones we talked about, parking is a huge issue, 74% like that. Improving infrastructure, 72%. So you see the things that they're looking for. Enhancing downtown redevelopment, 71%, also very popular. You start to drop a little bit. Expand commercial and residential space downtown, 60%, good, but not stratospheric like the others. And I found this interesting that downtown traffic congestion was almost last, and building new family homes, still positive, but came in at 52%. So your number one issues with this is using it for parks and recreation, improving downtown infrastructure. In terms of straight messaging, all of the money from the property will be used right here in our community. That scores 83%. So once they know that money is going to be cordoned off and earmarked for that, they love these ideas. So I think that kind of covers it. Yeah, I think I covered all of it, and you've got the full report.
Commissioner Robinson?
I just hope in the future we think of our casino property as a park, and consider investing from the sale in our park on the ocean. That's all.
Okay. Anything else?
No, Madam Mayor, at this point,
Let's open it up for our commission conversation on each of the individual items. If you'd like to make some comments, but before we do that, how about we see from the public what they would like to mention, and we'll go
Do you
one
need
by
me
one.
anymore, Madam Mayor? You want me to stay here, or are you done with me?
No, you can sit, and maybe
Okay.
we might call you up again, though. If
Okay,
somebody has a
thank you.
question for
Thanks,
somebody.
Steve.
Thank you. So the first item on the agenda was the City of Lake Worth Beach by referendum, and we have Anna.
So we're just Anna, 35 South J, number 15, Lake Worth, Florida, 32460. So, just even if we do change to the City of Lake Worth Beach or not, there are three things. I don't want to see more single-family homes. I want to develop land trusts, community land trusts, broccoli harvest, urban land trusts, city and urban community land trust. Also, I think we really need to change, Dixie to US 1. I definitely, voted the last presidency, Obama, Biden. It's a little bizarre, some of the extremes say in, topophilia, some of the topophilia extremes, I've got to say, are astonishing. There are times I've actually, I wouldn't know, there are times I have the strangest sensation, just the extremes in topophilia or sense of place. It would be very important to change the name from Dixie to US 1. And I think we need a new city hall. If we can build new single-family homes, we can have land trusts, community land trusts. And I think a new city hall like this building, some of it is actually very reminiscent of like the Green Sea of Darkness, a book that I read from a friend uptown. Some of the some of the topophilia memories are extremely southern, some of the vibes or the memories. And of course, the tri-state area in, where I come from is actually populating, and it's becoming central. The tri-state area where I come from is becoming centralized, and we can't, a person is just going to, drown out in the centralization. But if there's 3 things I could say about here: no more single-family homes, land trust, community land trust, feed the, health foods for the 4,422, change from Dixie to just US 1, and a better city hall from the reminiscent of the 1920s and the color of the green sea of darkness. And that's all I can say.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other cards on that?
No, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Well, commissioners, we've talked about this before in several other meetings. So, as you know, for me, it's there are pluses and minuses to both sides. I'm not completely invested in a name change if the people want it or don't want it. There are some things that we've talked about in the past, which is the disassociation from, I get calls all the time saying, "Hey, Mayor, when are you going to ever you never fix the signal lights at Hypoluxo and Jog. I voted for you." And I'm like, well, number one, you didn't vote for me because I'm not the mayor of Hypoluxo and Jog. And I get it quite frequently from all different areas that are called Lake Worth. Or, "I voted for you and you're my mayor." No, we're not out there in Lake Charleston. But but it's it's true. I mean, there's a lot of confusion about it, so I understand that. Also, a lot of the surveys and things that are done on a national basis, like our crime reports and things of that nature, they also lump in county, unincorporated Lake Worth, and other things that don't give us the ability to, like, our crime is down double digits, and when you pull in stats from some of the other areas, we're not seeing that positive growth in certain things. And when people are looking to invest or purchase a new home, bring their family here, do whatever, I'd like them to be comparing apples to apples, not apples to cucumbers. Those are some of the things that we've gone through in the past. I've also mentioned other cities have the name beach in it, like Royal Palm Beach and West Palm Beach, yet they have no beaches. We do. It's one of our great, it's one of our great, we have a great beach, not just any beach, we got a great beach. So, I mean, those are some of the things that we encounter, I think, as commissioners that get it frustrating. It's frustrating for us. I know Commissioner Vice Mayor Pro Tem Maxwell, you brought this up a long time ago, probably 7 years ago, I think, or it was 6 years ago when we were going through our centennial, and everyone was like, "No, you can't change the name, and we're celebrating our centennial." I think the addition of a word is not necessarily changing a word, but there were discussions too about other names. Maybe it shouldn't be Lake Worth Beach, maybe it should go back to Jewel, or maybe it should go back to this. There are some very plus and minus things in both regards. The cost, have we discussed the cost expenditure of changing over all of our stuff, redeveloping logos, creating all brand new materials for every department on every I mean, there's pluses and minuses, but I think, if you look towards the future of, everything's based on the internet and searchability and this and that, and it helps you find it. There's some pluses and minuses to both. So I say all this not just to hear myself talk, but open the conversation. So there you go, Vice Mayor.
What she said. I totally agree with you, Madam Mayor, and we hear it on a regular basis. The crime stats is one of the biggest things, unincorporated. Even prior to us, the electeds that sat here prior to us, fought with the news saying, please use Lake Worth, unincorporated Palm Beach County. And every once in a while, we get somebody in the news and the press that does, but for the most part, it goes back to Lake Worth, bunched into a big group. And also, our struggles with development. When you're sitting in New York, LA, and you Google Lake Worth and you get, the crime stats from unincorporated Lake Worth, you don't know the difference unless you're here. So, there's a lot of pros and cons, but 6 years ago, when we looked at changing the name, we were in the middle of our centennial. I think it was the right change, but at the wrong time. I think this is a good time, and we have a fabulous beach. We should market it. It should be Lake Worth Beach. But at the end of the day, not just this, but all three really need to go to the voters. The voters need to make that decision. I'm just one vote, and my vote is yes. Based on what I've seen as a commissioner and the struggles that we struggle with the name, I think adding Lake Worth Beach would put us on the map. It would bring a great value to the residents and to the city of Lake Worth.
Commissioner Robinson?
What you both said.
There you go.
So, but I think it's right to ask the citizens to decide. I thought it was a good idea, 7 years ago? It's even a better idea now because there's been a lot of change in those 7 years, positive change. And it's indicates that the momentum is still good and we want to keep it. Change is difficult and nobody really is enthusiastic about change at all. But it's going to distinguish us from Lake Worth. It's still going to be those people, and we're going to be Lake Worth Beach. I look forward to that. So I'm looking forward to it being on the ballot and a vote tonight to be so.
Thank you. Commissioner Hardy?
Sure. Poll numbers were surprising, but at the end of the day, I see no concrete harm, right, that can come from changing the name of the city. At the same time, I can identify a few concrete good things that can come from changing the name of the city to Lake Worth Beach if we're able to differentiate ourselves from unincorporated areas. The crime rate is a fraction, right? It's like the number of crimes over the population. And some of these websites that people use, who we won't name here, take crimes from a very large area, 6 zip codes that the post office assigns the name of Lake Worth to. But then, and that's the numerator, that's the top number, but then they take the denominator, our population within these 7 square miles. And so they divide a small number into a very, very large number, and it makes our crime rate look really bad. And I feel sorry for the sheriffs because they've done a fantastic job. And the Florida Department of Law Enforcement information, which is much more accurate than what you'll see on a lot of these websites, shows that crime has been going in the right direction. We have a trouble marketing that because of websites that might not do such a great job, and because the news media, it's hard to get Lord knows how many reporters to understand our municipal boundaries. There are 40 other municipalities, so I can understand why they might have a difficult time understanding ours. I can't see harm that will come from this. I can see a few good things in terms of the way that people would perceive the city that could come from this. At the end of the day, it will be up to the people who live in the city. If they don't want it, they can choose not to have it. And if they do want it, they can choose it. And this is one of those things where I don't see allowing a citywide vote would disenfranchise one group over another. I think some of these allowing us, some of these items that we're going to discuss this evening, allowing the entire city to vote on it, might not be fair, but this isn't one of those things. So,
Okay. Vice Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you to the 4 of you for your thoughtful comments. What all of you said is very applicable. I have never professed to be an internet guru or understand how it works or what it's all about or why it even exists, but I will tell you this. I am convinced that the rest of society has a much better grip on it than I do. And when I learned that, as was mentioned earlier, that potential investors, developers from around the country, the internet is a very useful tool for them. Saves them a lot of time and money when they're looking to expand or to grow. And simple things like typing in the word beach in South Florida, Lake Worth is never going to come up under that search when you type in that beach, and type in the word beach.
It may come up on the 78th page.
So yeah, we are missing, whether we want to admit it or not, and I think we all agree, I think we're missing, we're being left out in many respects. We're at a little bit of a disadvantage because of the internet and how it works and the use of keywords and things like that. So I'm very much in favor of putting this to the voters. And as Commissioner Robinson said, we're human beings, and we all, if we really want to be honest with ourselves, oftentimes are a little reluctant sometimes to change. And when we look at the polling data and we look at the folks that that we're not terribly fond of the idea. Those folks tend to be a little bit older, and I would dare say they probably lived here all their lives, or a very big portion of their lives, and to their way of thinking, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. That just doesn't square up with what they're all about and where they came from and where they want to be. But I think that the biggest opportunity we have with this is an educational piece. And I bring that up especially when I looked at the way this was worded and the way it was asked. And Mayor, I think you kind of touched on it a little bit when you talked about the word city of. And while I understand it and you understand it, we all understand it, that by the charter, those words they mean something. Most people don't say, when you ask them, where do you live? They don't say, I live in the city of Lake Worth. They say, I live in Lake Worth. Okay, and hence, the problems we've had with, the differentiating ourselves, or the difficulty differentiating ourselves. So there's an education curve, and the only comment that I would have about that is, number one, is it possible that we could tweak the language just a little bit and still make it legally sufficient? Okay, and be a little more descriptive as to why we're doing this. I mean, it's one thing to say you want to distinguish yourself from surrounding unincorporated areas, but what does that really mean? Why do we want to distinguish ourselves? Is it something we want to commit to writing? Do we want to put in there? I don't know how you would do that, or what we put in there, but do we want to give examples of why we want to do this? I don't know. But to the casual reader, the person that reads this for the first time, I'd say, in order to distinguish yourself from surrounding unincorporated areas, but they may not understand what that means and why we're saying that. So there definitely is going to have to be an educational piece. And I know that as a city, we cannot advocate one way or the other for a ballot initiative, but I do think it would be in our best interest if we adopt this, that we put together some educational materials that would educate people inform people as to what the reason we're going down this road is. And again, Mr. Robinson also mentioned earlier, he kind of touched on the idea of the positive things that we've been experiencing over the years. And I think, these are all great things that have happened over the years, and I think we're all very proud of those. I think many of our residents are very proud of some of the accomplishments that we've been able to offer up over the few years. Well, I think it's now time to reward ourselves and take another layer of that onion, if you will, that's kind of holding us back, and that is, clearly identifying ourselves as who we are and not being mixed in with, everybody else when bad things happen in other parts of the city. So again, thank you all for your comments, and I wholeheartedly support this, and I hope that the voters will see fit to change the name, but if they don't, it's not the end of the world, and we'll continue doing the good things we've been doing going forward. Thank you.
Commissioner Hart?
Yes, I agree wholeheartedly with Commissioner Maxwell. I think that education is important. If this gets sent to the voters, while we cannot advocate for a position, I think the school district did a fantastic job of educating voters about the countywide question. I think we can do a similar job. So if this ends up going on the ballot, I would like to see city staff at neighborhood association meetings explaining the rationale behind what this is, and explaining what the full implications of a name change would be, so that people can know. Because in the absence of us explaining to people what the ballot item really is and what the implications are, there is, of course, lots of communication and conversation, some of which is truthful and factual, and some of which will not be truthful and factual. And if the city doesn't get the facts out, then, as the old saying goes, a lie gets halfway around the world before the truth gets his pants on. We have to make sure that folks have factual information about what the ballot language is. So, and I'm done talking for this evening. Well, not for this evening, but for this item.
Wow. Sorry.
You want a motion? Do you want a motion?
We don't need a motion.
You don't need a
It's just a
motion.
discussion. One thing that I found really interesting, though, I mentioned before, I said how people out there think they're in Lake Worth, but they're not. That was one aspect that I looked at it, because in my private business, I work a lot in branding and marketing and things of that nature. So, I looked at it from, there's a feeling of inclusion for people that live out in the western communities, that we're their downtown. Even though they might live at Lake Worth Road and jog, they view us, and we're very reliant on them, because our critical mass of our population is not enough to support a thriving business community as it is. So we rely upon people coming in from the outside to visit our businesses, and I thought, well, that was one of the aspects I thought about looking at it, thinking, well, would we be alienating the people out in the Western? Not at all, because they call us Lake Worth Beach already, which I found really interesting, because they're going to the beach, not necessarily the physical beach, but that's what they call it too. But I looked at it from both of those angles. I thought that was pretty interesting. I did have a car that came in last minute. Did you have anything to add? Did you?
No.
I'm sorry,
It was
Rick.
Anna Maria.
Anna Maria? Okay. I normally wouldn't call, but we're in a workshop format. So usually just so I know, once we go to commission speaking, then just because it allows for people not to go back and forth.
My fault, I'm sorry.
You want to put one in? Come
Yeah.
on up.
Good evening, Anna Maria, 404 South C Street. One of the reasons I moved to Lake Worth was the beach. And it's because my husband's health was deteriorating and he needed exercise that was comfortable. The beach was it. Also, I equate the beach with economy and tourism. And I think that's a really important part that we need in this town, is the tourist dollar, and we're not getting it right now. And I have one example of a friend that you all know, friend of everyone's now, who lived out in Green Acres for about a year and a half, did not know we had a beach here. And when they discovered it, they bought a condo here. So it does make a difference. And if you have a big snowstorm in New York City and there are no trash pickup, by New Year's they'll be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to the next item. I'm going to hold those cards. I'm going to go one by one for each item. So if you just, meaning they're listed as A, B, and C. So the beach name. Yeah, just beach. We're on beach naming. Did you have?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it was about
Um,
selling land. It said.
well, all of it, I thought we were all talking about everything, but can I talk about the?
Yeah, sure.
I'll be quick.
Oh, no, it's okay. We're good. Yeah, I'm going to do public comment after each item so you have a chance to.
So this comment is about the beach. Sorry about my chicken scratch. Things that are going to come up. What is it going to cost to change this name for the election? What is it going to cost to the city to change the name as far as everything it has to do? I'd like to know those numbers, and I think those numbers will be asked. So can we have those numbers and share them with the people that are going to be voting? Second of all, I did a little mini poll, and about an hour ago or so, I put a little poll up on my Facebook page. It covers the city of Lake Worth. It has 15,000 people. Probably 250 or 260 people have voted already, and it's 75% against it. So just thought that was interesting. So thanks.
You got it. Yeah, I agree with that. Actually, Ms. Panzer, I actually asked the city manager the same thing, putting the cost together for the cost of all it. Okay, so we're moving on to the item B. This is the ballot language to allow the sale of 501 Lake Ave by referendum. Is your card for that one as well? The 501 Lake Avenue?
I don't
Okay. Okay. And then, so do we have any discussion on that?
Just for clarification, Madam Mayor, this is sale for this piece of property only.
Correct.
It
Correct.
is not anything else other than one one building.
Correct.
Thank you.
Commissioner Hardy?
Forward 100%. This is the downtown, 501.
Yes.
Forward 100%. It makes no sense for us to be an owner in what is one of the most prime real estate locations in the city. It's like we're literally in our own way. We could be collecting taxes on that property. A number of people could be living in that property, adding vitality to the downtown. And Lord knows we need more souls waking up and going to sleep in the downtown. So yes, we should definitely put this property in play. Yeah.
Okay. Rest of us, I think we were pretty unanimous on this issue in the past time around.
It's in the CRA area, so the CRA is going to be involved. Probably a public-private partnership will be mentioned in the future if we do sell it. And I look forward to something new there and to the benefit of everybody in Lake Worth.
Okay. All right, we've got no public comment cards on that, so we'll move on to the ballot language to sell the 12-acre parcel by referendum. This is the piece of property, not the ball fields property, but the other, it's the bow tie.
As we call it.
Oh, the bow tie piece of property.
It's vacant land on abutting I-95.
And what exists on that land right now?
Iguanas.
Okay.
A lot of very large iguanas.
Is there a visual?
It's right there in your map.
No, but I mean for the screen at home.
Do we have any?
I don't have a
Okay. Okay. So Commissioner Hardy?
Well, this is gonna have to.
Yeah,
suffice.
so here's my thing. We had this somewhat philosophical discussion about, well, what's the harm in allowing voters throughout the city to vote and decide on issues? What's the harm with voters voting? The harm with voters voting on some things, okay, is that this land sale will affect relatively few people, right? And yet everyone in the city will get to vote on something that's a quality of life issue for very few of them, okay? And basically the people who need to have the largest say will have a proportional say, and that's probably not fair to them. And so my feeling is that before this gets sent to the ballot, before folks in Pineapple Beach get the opportunity, which is the furthest corner away from this, get the opportunity to open the Pandora's box for someone else in the city, I think there should be significant, I can't say the word significant enough, outreach to the folks who live there. And the last time we had this discussion, it was the same night as their neighborhood association meeting. So I would like to see city staff go to the neighborhood association meeting of Vernon Heights and discuss this with them. Because the last time I had a conversation with folks from Vernon Heights, which was when their previous president was there, I got a pretty ambiguous no on all development around them until certain traffic issues were addressed that are outside of our control. And I've spoken at length with the county about that. They feel that the 22nd and Dixie light is operating just fine. So I just want to see a very robust conversation had with the folks who live there before we allow folks who don't live there to decide the quality of life for folks who do.
I think I was pretty consistent on both the discussions we had on land in that area, in that when something is bound, it has to go to the ballot, right? It's because it's parkland. It's not currently a park in any way, shape, or form. It's not usable land, whatever.
Right.
But I believe that a parks master plan needs to be done. So we're talking about using that money for and we'll use it for parks within the community. I don't want to offer sale of any land that's deeded for park or recreation space unless we have a parks master plan to know where it goes. It's leaving that door open for me, that it could just go here or there without doing that doesn't make any sense. What are we leaving in this community for park space when we talk about some of this land? You know, we had 2 tracts of land that we were dealing with in the past. Again, this is not being utilized, for recreation or anything like that. I agree with Commissioner Hardy in reference to the traffic study, because that is one of the biggest concerns in that area. I am, however, appreciative of the reference in the ballot language through your research. While I didn't support this at all, and I won't support this until some of those items, in my opinion, are done. I think that the language at least recognizes the need, if there is development in the community, single family within single family neighborhoods, and there's smaller amount of homes per that property. I appreciate them doing the time and the work to try to create like within like.
Yeah.
Commissioner Hardy?
Do you mind me asking, is William in the room? William, what's the dwelling units per acre for Vernon Heights proper?
Thank you. I was thinking that before.
Are you referring to what the zoning is or how it's developed?
What's the current development pattern?
The lots range anywhere from upper 1/3 acre to almost a half an acre. And if you take into context how much land it was involved in platting out Vernon Heights, it's right around a little over 2 units an acre.
Okay.
Because the roadways are rather large.
Okay, so the max 24 stipulation that we'd be putting on this ballot. Well, I was a no last time. I think the last 2 times I was a no. I think we were the only two people, yeah, who said no to this. But basically, in the ballot language, it was max 2 units an acre, basically, because this is like a 12-acre parcel.
Right.
Okay, I'm still a no, but all right. I just don't think it's appropriate to allow folks throughout the city to decide what the quality of life for folks in one part of the city is going to be in this way. If there were another way into this property, perhaps, but there isn't. And if there weren't a park right there, and if there weren't potential access issues, and exclusivity issues, then perhaps, but that's the case, so, yeah.
I'm going to answer one thing to you, and I hate to disagree with you because we're on the same side of this issue. But unfortunately, when we start to put parameters in that, like for other people to be deciding that, we come into things we faced like in the bond referendum, which was, why should I have the most expensive house in the city? Why should I have to pay for roads going in and other areas? When you draw that line, unfortunately, it doesn't play on both sides of the argument. We all have to come together to create solutions for our city as a whole. You know what I mean? And it's tough. Why should I don't want to put in streets in the south end. Now I'm going to have to pay $18,000 instead of $8,000 because I agree. Without their input is one thing, but it's kind of it's a sticky wicket.
I think that the fundamental bargain of people who live together in a city or a community of any size is that basically, like, we're all going to put things into the pot together, and we might not get proportionally what it is that we put in. I think on the other side, when we're talking about doing things that affect one group of people in what is potentially a negative way, I think, we want to kind of defer, right, to, the people who live there and who are going to experience, who are going to experience the harm. So
I know,
that's
it's one of the joys of this job that makes it very hard, though, to try to stay right along the center
Surely.
and make everyone happy.
Surely.
All right, Carla Bloxton, you're up first, followed by Patricia Oliphant, Tammy Panza, and Kathy Turk. Welcome. Or hold it.
You can hold it.
It works really well when you hold it, yeah.
No, I want to make sure that my concerns are heard. So I wrote everything down.
Oh, that's just me.
Oh, I know you did it.
Go for it.
Come on, you can do
You
it.
can hit him with it.
Come on, you can, oh.
I have so many friends in the city.
Can you please state your name and address for the record?
Yes, I will. My name is Carla Bloxton, and I live at 1802 Pierce Drive, Lake Worth, and I am president of the Vernon Heights Property Association. So when you talk about not in my backyard, this is my backyard. This is right where I live. It's going to go at 1801. I live at 1802. So I want you to know how important it is to me. I'm not against development. I'm not against increasing our tax base. But I want you to be sure that you're doing the right thing at the right time. The amendment for our charter was born out of the public's perception that the local commission would sell public land. I guess the perception is now becoming part of the reality. That's what you're considering, and that's why it has to go to a vote. December 13th would be the date that it would be set to go to the ballot. December 4th is the first reading. What that means is you have roughly 2 weeks to make a monumental decision. Why are we rushing? Why is it so important that it get on the ballot this March? We will be probably in the same financial situation next year as we are right now. So why are we rushing? I understand that people have an interest in wanting to develop that property. One of the reasons is because they want access to the C-51 canal. Our development has a stake in the park that is right next to where the C-51 canal is. We have paid for over 20 years of maintenance on that park. What's going to happen to our interest? Who's going to protect it? We are landlocked in that area. So if we have increased traffic, if you decide to develop this, and if you decide to develop the ball fields next year at that vote, what are we going to do? We're going to have to decide whether or not we're going to continue to live there. Okay, when we did the land use change, the proposed land use change from public, which is what that area and the ball fields were. When we did that change, it was, oh, don't worry about it. That's not what we're doing. Well, now that is what we're doing. This 2 minutes is really quick.
And I paused it for the whole microphone.
Let it go, let it go.
It's okay.
Yeah.
If you like,
Yeah.
all right, it's a workshop, go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
Add a minute to her time. Anyone else who needs an extra minute, I'll give you that too.
Right now, we have the traffic congestion at A and 10th Avenue North. It is so terrible that we can barely get out onto the I-95. And then when the building of the complex on A Street on the south end is put in, we're really going to have trouble just getting through that light. Now the traffic is so backed up going west that we can barely make a turn onto A Street in our allotted time because the cars don't move up. So you have nowhere to go. We're not dealing with our traffic congestion and our problems, but we're in a hurry to put this referendum on the ballot. And by leading with saying, in the interest to improve local parks and recreation, shall the city be authorized to? If you led with, would you want the city to sell public property and left it at that, do you think it would have the same meaning? And would the poll be the same? When you're telling people we're going to improve the parks, are you going to improve the parks at 22nd Street? Thank you.
Thank you. Patricia Oliphant?
Patricia Oliphant, 1724 11th Avenue North. I'm unequivocally opposed to selling this property. We may think, and I've heard it's useless, it's valuable land. May not be right now, but we have to think way ahead, 20 years, 30 years. That land is never going to lose its value. If we sell it, we'll never get it back. We won't be able to afford it in the future. She just mentioned, what's the hurry? I agree, but I assume the hurry is there's somebody who wants it, somebody who can make a lot of money off of owning that land at the taxpayer's expense. Carla also made an excellent point. It abuts the C-51 canal. I mean, we could have a kayak launch. We could do a lot with that property. We may think we have a lot of parks in Lake Worth, but not every part of the city has parks. Commissioner Hardy, you suggested they meet with Vernon Heights, but I live there. I have 2 children with families that live there. We all go down there because that part is city. And we go to there's a little dock that it's beautiful, and there's wetlands there. And with access to the C-51 canal, why would we lose basically waterfront access to the intercoastal? Some developer wants it. Somebody's going to make a lot of money, and that's the only reason I feel that we're interested in selling it. I think it's sort of duplicitous, the language like, oh, we'll use that money for parks. Well, you know what? We could have that park. Don't sell land for parks. That can be a potential park. And I'm not talking about a park where we need more places where we can just have a sanctuary for humans, for bees. How about a bee sanctuary? How about food security? How about having planting mangoes and avocados so children can afford food?
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. And like I said, let me see what else I had down there. I guess that's it. Oh, I do believe the whole city it belongs to the city. You can't just have one part of the city vote for the other part because it's too easy to sway votes. And I don't want to see it go to the ballot. If it does go to the ballot, I will definitely work hard to fight against it being sold. Thank you.
Tammy Panza, followed by Kathy Turner.
Tammy Panza, 116 North L. I think the language of the ballot that was mentioned in the poll was kind of duplicitous. I think that's a great word. I think we are a little rushed. I think we haven't given this enough time. I really would like to see what happens with the C-51 canal and access to the intracoastal. Looking at just the setup of that area, you could technically have a little marina park with a boat ramp and all sorts of things. There's little paper roads here and there that you could put something that's more friendly to the neighborhoods. So I would definitely vote against this. And also just keep in mind that when we transfer properties around and we had a little bit of a pushback when we tried to change the zoning and then, oh, now we're going to change the future land use and things get moved around and then all of a sudden it's okay to just do something. And I don't think that's ever right. I was actually just looking up the city property and that 1,000 Lake Avenue, that big building with all the murals, was sold for $300,000 only by the CRA recently. And I didn't keep up with that, so I didn't know. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's a big thing. And my bad for not knowing it. But to have this go away in a matter of 2 weeks to someone who wouldn't use it as well as the city would, I'd say let's bench this and see what happens with what's going on with the city, with the green, the blue trail, Blue Way Trail?
Yes.
And what's going on with Dixie Highway as well is going to really change the value of that property very soon in the future. So I'd say a no. Thanks.
Thank you. Kathy Turk, followed by Michael Vivian.
Hi, Kathy Turk, 901 North B Street. I'm getting over a cold, so I apologize. First of all, I am not for selling this property, but I would just like to point out that the commissioner who is now saying that the majority should not vote on something that affects the minority is the same commissioner who sat down with the developer as soon as this land use was changed and got them to help them put together an unsolicited bid proposal. So we've got a little bit of hypocrisy going on with this one. But again, I am not for this. I think it's a beautiful natural habitat that we need to take advantage of. Thank you.
Michael Vivian. Thank you.
I'm from 2381 Sunset Avenue, and I look at this map and I hear people say that it's not serving any benefit presently, but if I lived in the area that's marked in green, I'd say, thank God for that. I don't have to listen to the noise of I-95. And to be reasonable, I think in 60 years we should review and see if we'd change our mind then. Because in 60 years, well, none of us will be here. But, well, maybe some of us will be here. I got some bionic parts. We will rue the day when we gave away Greenland. They don't make any more. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Robinson? Would you like to start?
This is not, this is always in somebody's backyard. Change is, again, a difficult decision. I want a quality tax base on the property, and that's why I'm in favor of it. And I don't think that's any harm to anybody in the city. The duplicitousness of the ballot question is in fact explicit in that that money is going to be used for parks in our city, wherever it be. So I think that by restricting it to as much as possible is a benefit to everybody. What was proposed unsolicited bid was frightening, and I would have probably, thrown my body in front of any bulldozer for that project. William, would you define or give us an explanation of what was mentioned as a park for Vernon Heights? Is he left? Okay, there it is.
I'm not familiar with that park. I'm sorry. I assume it's a little.
You can click on it.
This area up here.
Yeah.
There's a little dock there.
It's the area with the lake and the, yeah.
But it's not designated or named as an official park in the city, as far as I'm aware.
It's privately owned.
But it's private property then?
That's the county, South Florida Water Management District property.
Just that little section is.
Well, all of that's in this.
Yeah, can you show us?
Here
You click on
is
that.
all South Florida Water Management District land.
Both of those.
That's South Florida Water Management.
But Vernon Heights has access to it, but not any control over it.
As I understand, they have access down this part.
Where?
Yes.
That part, okay.
Well, it's of interest.
Is that the split rail fence that when I bike around past the ball fields and go left and go into that back part? It's the split rail fence that's around there, and there's like a little gazebo that, or goes out there. Would you mind? Yes, please.
The area that you're talking about, if you are not.
Yes, please, if you wouldn't mind.
Thank you. You're the expert here.
The area that you're talking about is at the end of Pierce Drive. And it is a large area. It's not a small area, and it's not just the area that it butts over to where the new property would be located. Because when you go to the end of Pierce, this is the land that the city owns. Behind my house, next to I-95. The park that we're talking about is actually straight at the end of Pierce, which goes all the way over to Pierce to Vernon. So we've paid for maintenance from Pierce to Vernon, which is an extensive area.
And that's city land that we're discussing?
No, what it is that land is actually jointly owned by the nursing home, the city, and I believe it's the water district.
Water management.
So yes, water management district. But when they built Vernon Heights, they had an agreement, and we have a copy of it, to say that as long as Vernon Heights residents maintain that area, we would have access to it. So we're actually talking about two different things. We're not talking about the same space.
Right.
I'm trying to find out too, because like when people talk about C-51 canal, or they talk about other issues, things that go through the South Florida Water Management District and the county, I see you guys, I also have questions too. When it goes to the South Florida Water Management District or the county or whatever those jurisdictions are, you know, there's already talk, you know, they're gonna build this and they're gonna do that if these things happen or whatever. So keeping control of our own, I mean, like I said, Parks Master Plan for me involves all the parks. You know, if we're gonna build, I have been consistent in saying, I understand that there's development and development can happen and there may be ways and conversations need to be had if it's doable or allowable. But you don't tell someone you're gonna take something away from them without offering them a replacement for that. And we have green space and we have these things and we have to maintain, we have to assess our assets and find out what can be used to best benefit the neighborhoods and communities that are already utilizing, number one, you know, certain areas of it and enhancing them in certain ways. There's gonna be, if they open up that C-51 canal, you know, the county and West Palm and everyone's gonna build whatever the heck on their side of whatever the heck it is. So, I mean, that's gonna happen. You know, if that happens on the one side, it's gonna happen everywhere. So how do we control our side and also offer the best to it? That's a conversation that needs to be had. We're not having that conversation yet. That's why it's too quick for me. And that's why I voted consistently no on this, too fast. And the discussions need to be had. And a Parks Master Plan for the beach, for the pool, for the this, for the that, all needs to happen so we can address all of these issues and know, okay, hey, what's the goal for the city, for its people?
Madam.
Commissioner, yeah, sorry. Herman had his light
Well,
up first.
I wasn't
Commissioner
finished,
Robinson?
because I haven't heard any even alternative ideas for the improvement of this property. This property is, in my estimation, a derelict property that is absolutely unimproved and just underutilized. It's another asset that in our community that's underutilized. And if we can get a quality 10 homes that would be a tax base for the community and money to be spent on parks. I know it's not a good idea to sell public land, but this really isn't public land. This is excess land, friendship is important.
I understand,
and
I agree. It needs to be talked about, looked at, and discussed and argued over. It does not need to be voted on this month.
Agreed.
That's my only
Well,
All
but
right,
what-
and you know
if-
what, and can we're breaking from protocol here, normally we don't have interaction back and forth
well,
with the
let me
community. and
ask the commissioner, or-
We've already done this, we're gonna stay by the rules, I gave an extension on the time to give people more of a chance to play, we're gonna do this
But-
according to the rules and to decorum. If you'd like to state your case on it, I've got more people to hear from too.
Thank you. If not now, when?
Correct.
And when is never going to be a good time. So I think now is a better time than not.
They said that about the beach. Vice Mayor?
I'm sorry, I had.
Oh, I'm
my
sorry.
own.
Yes, you did.
Okay.
Excuse me.
Um,
Commissioner Harney.
yeah, sometimes improvement is an improvement. I just want to address something that was said. And I won't call what was said a lie, because that would imply that the person who said it is a liar, and that would imply bad things about the person. So I don't want to do that. What I will say is that what was said about me and whatever it is that I did is not true, and that the person who said it should know that it's not true. What was said was that I helped a developer put together a bid proposal for a piece of property. That was what was said. That's not true. That's so unbelievably not, I can't even believe that it would come out of the mouth of someone who is preparing to run for office, who wants to represent people.
You know what, let's think.
And it was said about me, and I think every person up here has a right to defend themselves, and they believe that something patently untrue was said about them, and I represent the people who
I understand, but we're
who
keeping
live
it
there,
to,
and that's just
your name wasn't mentioned, and you don't have to mention or point out someone. You can direct it to me.
I was referred to.
There
The
you go.
person said the commissioner who made that comment, and I'm clearly the person who made that comment, did X, Y, Z.
Okay.
And what she said I did is
just.
just simply not false.
Okay, no, you're,
Okay.
please, I give you every ability to clarify or just make your statements, okay?
Sure.
I'm not stopping you. from-
Again, Madam Mayor, that's a beautiful bottle of water you have there. Why don't we decide whether or not to sell it? And you'll have a say, but the five of us will vote on it. That's what this property is here, right? You'll be the only person who's actually affected by this. But everyone else who's not affected by it will have the ability to say whether or not we get to profit off of this bottle of water, right? And so that's first of all, it's my practical and philosophical objection to this process. I agree with Ms. Bloxett. There's no reason to do this right now. There are catalysts in the future for price appreciation on this property. If it is the case that we want to do this, we can do it in the future. In addition to that, again, it's a quality of life issue for the people who live there. So I was a no the last two times. I'm a no this time. It's unfortunate that everyone in this room can't stick to the truth.
Vice Mayor?
Okay, well, I have a comment on that, but I'll start with where I was going.
I would love to hear it.
One, please. There's a certain amount of decorum and respect we have for one another.
I agree.
Not only here on the dais as well as in the audience, okay?
Well,
Let's keep it that
let
way.
me start with that first. I think we need to, off point, since we've gone off point, clearly look at our Roberts rules and how we conduct meetings, because I have been called quite a few things. I have been called things and we were told that we are not to engage with the audience or rebuttal anything said in our direction.
Correct.
And it's always been like that, and tonight changed. However, moving back to the issue, I am a no tonight, and the reason I am a no tonight, we've heard over and over a parks plan. Are we working on a parks plan? And if we are, let's see that in the near future. I totally believe we need to work, we've been working on parks for years. We need an overall parks plan. But we also need to take a serious look at the C-51 on both sides. We have a lease with the county in my district, and if we don't do something with the boat lift and all that, we need to seriously look at doing something. We need kayak launches. It could be a beautiful park. Right now, it's just a holding pattern for homeless people that abuts neighborhoods. The same thing with this property. This property, it can be beautiful. It can be green space. But we need an overall master plan. And we need it yesterday. We talked about it. We've been talking about it for years. Not only so this doesn't come up, we need an overall. So tonight I am a no.
Commissioner Robinson?
Well, to talk about wanting at a park when we can't afford the parks that we have, to maintain the parks that we have
That's why we need
is just simply avoiding a decision on what we're talking about, not using that as an excuse. We have a park on the ocean that is in desperate need of improvement, and if we can find any additional money to improve our park on the ocean, I would think that would be a wise use of money. And if we're talking about turning this property into a parkland, where are we going to get that money? Please.
Vice Mayor?
I agree that there's not enough money to go around. That's why we need a clear park overview. But taking from one district to pay and put at the beach because there were mistakes made at the beach and, we need funding there. I don't think, again, all people should vote and we are one city, but we need to look at one city overall master plan. Yes, I agree we need funding for the beach, but I don't think that we should sell off a neighborhood, a green space, potential access to water or whatever it is. We don't even know what it is yet. We know it has iguanas. We know it's green. We know it abuts Miss Bloxton's house. We know that we still need to have a talk about the issues with the traffic. I still haven't got a clear answer about the light that's at the new construction at 10th Avenue that stops you there. Why do we have one and no one else in Palm Beach County has one? Nobody seemed to answer that question. So again, even on Dixie Highway, we've got a beautiful new project coming in on Dixie Highway that we're going to have some issues with. We may need a light, we may not need a light. We're going to have to look at redirecting traffic so it doesn't run through the west side to get out onto 10th Avenue on A Street. We need to look at all that. So I think we need to have more conversation. And, I wish we had enough money to pay for everything.
Vice Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you. I'm not really sure where to begin, other than to say that it's really a shame that we're having the conversation in this context, because city staff at one point was moving towards all the things we've been talking about here tonight, putting together some sort of a plan to maybe identify property in the city that could be leveraged, if you will, for funding for a parks program. And somehow or another, we fumbled the ball. Some of us got ahead of ourselves and made some statements and whatever, and got people all fired up, and we got off track. And there's been a lot of backpedaling and jockeying now, but I guess at the end of the day, though, it's best that it worked out this way, because we're going to finally get to do what we set out to do before it all got boogered up, and that is take a step back, figure out what we can do about a parks master plan, okay, and come back and take another bite at it sometime in the future when we have more information, and to allow staff to finish what they had started to do, and not to hijack that process, halfway through the process or 3/4 of the way through the process. That's how I perceive this process to have evolved. So I'm very thankful that we all seem to be in agreement here, or most of us seem to be in agreement here, that we need to take a step back and give a little bit more time. Certainly, we need to talk to the folks in Vernon Heights, and not just Vernon Heights, but the folks who live, just east of them and just south of them. I mean, they're stakeholders too. They have a piece of A Street as well. Let's see. That's just about it. I just hope that going forward, we don't find ourselves, doing some of the things that we've done to put us in this position in the future. Let's, work with staff a little bit more closely, have a little bit more confidence in what staff is trying to propose, and work with them. And so as not to, erase or to handicap, if you will, the work that they've already initiated on our behalf. Because we're all of us, all 5 of us, those of us who are elected, the staff, believe it or not, we all want the same things.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, we're all looking to get to the same place.
So true.
And we just maybe have slightly different ways of looking at how we're going to get there. And I just wish that Sometimes we could just be a little more sensitive to the pace at which we're doing things. And I'm not going to babble on, but I just want this to be maybe a learning opportunity for us all. But I'm glad that what I'm hearing tonight is that we're going to put this off until we have more information and we can get more people involved in the discussion.
And thank you. What you said was really interesting. You know, first it was, the conversation came up, and again, what is this land? What is this land available for? What can actually happen there? How much is accessible that's land, or how much is saturated in water, in swamp? I mean, there's so much assessment of this property in itself. What can actually happen there? We know what can happen in reference to parks. We're talking about the other side of construction. But again, first and foremost, unfortunately, a history or a legacy of all or nothing leads us to accomplish nothing. And we forget that the truth lies in the center here if we're ever going to be positive and move things forward. You know what I mean? We have to see and do our due diligence. And every time we step in it, so to speak, it's because the people who are affected most by it aren't communicated with properly. You know, I mean, almost every single time we step in it, we think we have, you know, in a governmental standpoint, or staff thinks they have, and they've handled it too. But sometimes we may hit every door. We may offer a meeting. We may win, and there's going to be still more than half the people that said they never knew about it. No matter how much staff thinks that they've done what needs to be done to notify people about it, it's never enough. So you have to go above and beyond to do it. It starts with communication. It starts with investigation. And again, I never believe in threatening to take something away from someone without offering them something better for that. If you compromise with this or that or this or that, giving them a better park, giving them more places, more ball fields, more things to do, more whatever it is, and invest in our assets. The tricky part with Lake Worth is, because we're 7 square miles, when we look at it from an investment standpoint, and we want to increase our tax base, we want to become, you know, we want to be able to pay our bills and to do the things that people want. There's very few places that allow for any type of new development or building. It's all infill. You know, most of it is infill that we have. So when there are specific places, and that's what that land was being, you know, looked for, whatever, that's a place that's not being accessed. It's not serving, other than the sliver of park that's partially water management. That piece of land is not being utilized as a functioning piece of land. So staff understood, took it as this is an investment opportunity. Again, but we always put the cart before the wheel. You know what I mean? We take these steps backward, like I feel we did tonight, simply by not doing the correct due diligence ahead of time. We won't step in it. If you engage everyone in the discussion, I think we've gotten to a point now in our conversations here in Lake Worth that, again, it's not about all or nothing. It's about how can we get something positive for the communities that we're in. You know, and that's really where we need to be. You know, I don't think of this as a failure. It's, again, a failure to communicate properly. Let's communicate properly, and then we can talk about it and create solutions. But I appreciate the conversations that all of you have had on this, and I don't want us. We have never succeeded in the last X years, at least that I've been here. We've never succeeded by our arguments. We've learned from them. But we've never succeeded when we took adversarial positions, no matter where we stood on an issue. So whatever it is, we succeeded and we progress positively when we work together on it, regardless of, you might offer something that I wouldn't have thought of. I might offer something you wouldn't have thought of. But it's not going to be by all or nothing. That is too extreme, and it doesn't work in Lake Worth, and it never will. Sorry. Commissioner Robinson?
I'm not going to have a conversation about trying to change anybody's mind again, but I appreciate very much the conversation that we all are concerned about doing the right thing. And I may differ, but that doesn't mean it's an adversarial position.
I agree.
It's just a different opinion. And that I really appreciate the conversation, the ability to, because we can't talk amongst ourselves
Correct.
any other time but now. And we are all here to do the best for the entire city. My frustration is with our oceanfront park, and if there's a glimmer of getting that improved, I'm enthused about it. The fact that staff has taken us professionally to the ability to even talk about this is appreciated, and we're all doing the right thing by talking about it. It's a good thing. It's not adversarial. It's the way it should be.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%, and thank you for that too. Like I said, we're good, healthy discussion, turn of events, but do you have your,
So, Madam Mayor,
Direction.
Commission, as I understand the consensus in the discussion that's transpired, on the beach issue, you are in favor of putting that on the ballot. On the sale of the commercial property downtown 501 Lake, you're in favor of putting that on the ballot. However, you're not in favor of proceeding with the sale of the 12 acres. Therefore, on the December 4th's agenda and subsequently the December 13th's agenda, we'll have on first and second reading the adoption of the ordinances to place this on the March ballot, those two items.
yes, and I would just say too that, one thing that was interesting in the course of this discussion, if you'll give me the mayor's privilege here, was that when I initially talked about it and talked about a park study, it became, well, if this passes, then we'll put the money towards a park study. Someone brought that to my attention. I never said, first I thought it was, we do the park study and then you bring it to the people. Then all of a sudden it became a conversation of, well, if they approve it, then we'll do the study. It changed. And somewhere it changed, why it changed, I don't know, but I just want to put it on record. I was not happy with that change. Commissioner Robinson.
Just one last thing, is that we aren't leaving it up to the people of the city. And clearly, the survey showed that the city was entitled. We can make a decision based on politics, or we can make a decision based on progress of our city. And if we're going to spend money on a park study, when clearly we have a derelict property on the ocean in terms of a pool and improvements that need to be done there, if we don't do anything there and have a study, I'm really going to be very disappointed in the approach to improving things.
Motion to adjourn?
I'll have a second.
I'm sorry.
A second. I have a motion to adjourn on the floor right now. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor state so by saying aye.
See.
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Mayor and Commission. It's a good meeting.
Yes.